When the patent office had sent us out the denial, even that word is yucky, right? Like, oh, denied, oh my God. But I've even sent out, predating that to everyone, a valuation analysis that presumed that our patent would be denied because the claims we're making, when made individually, each had some kind of prior art, some kind of something somewhere where someone thought up. And our secret sauce, per se, was not so much the individual components, but the assembly line of the entire structure and what that produces. So it is a core belief that the future of AI is dependent on two things. One, money, and really unlimited money, because to power compute, it takes energy, it takes hardware. And to power compute, as exponential as that grows, AI is an intelligence. It will always outpace the exponential growth of the compute offered. Like if a tree has an apple and the apple's 9 feet, well, you have to grow 9 feet to get the apple. But if the tree grows another foot, now you have to grow 10 feet to get the apple. And the tree is the compute. The more feet you add to this tree, the more the AI has room to grow. So the growth of AI is infinite, which means the money needed to power that growth is also infinite. Okay, which sounds like a difficult thing, like how are you going to solve that? But don't worry, we did. And then the second thing was data. In fact, OpenAI just released ChatGPT 5 last week. And one of the big things that went fairly unheralded, because I think people just don't understand, is that the majority of data that they use was synthetic data, which tells you what we've already said. The entire data log of the globe has already been consumed. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, like Anthony, oh my God, the entire, yeah. What's the data log of the globe? Like libraries, like the internet? And those that have data log that is in real time is like Tesla, because the cars have cameras on it, or Twitter, which is real-time people talking, and then Google, which is real-time people searching, and then Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and all of these different real-time social media messaging, emails, blah. Great. Well, those are siloed. So for instance, Microsoft owns Outlook, and it owns Copilot, and it owns Azure, and it owns LinkedIn. These are the things that Microsoft is able to get real-time data from. Meta, formerly Facebook, owns Instagram and owns WhatsApp and owns Facebook. And these are the things where they're able to get real-time data from. Google owns Google, the search engine. Amazon owns what? They have a big stake in Anthropic, so effectively that's their AI, but they own their marketplace, right? They own their Amazon Web Services. They own their servers. They have a lot of real-time insight. Each one of these insights, though, is siloed to where it's coming from. It sounds like a silly question, but are you the same person on Facebook as you are on Twitter? Are you the same person on Instagram as you are on LinkedIn? And the answer is no. Each one of these platforms, by default, that they exist, don't compete with each other for that portion of your life. Twitter is more of like a town hall where you could act impulsively and scream and say things and, but you would never do that on Facebook, because Facebook is more like where family gets together, and this is kind of like the best version of you, and you share family pictures and things of that nature. Instagram is kind of like a look at me, like, look at me in a bikini, look at me, graduating this class, look at me bodybuilding, right? And then Google searches for a ton of things. This is what I'm interested in, where can I find it? But, a certain portion of that is like, oh, I'm interested in this. I don't know anyone else is interested in this. I'm not going to ask anybody, like, where can I find this thing, right? Tesla, the cameras on the car, like, first of all, you're of a certain economic bucket, right? That you're even able to afford a Tesla. So that's already only a segment of the population, but be that as it may, well, how do you drive? The decisions I make when driving are different than the decisions I make on Twitter. Well, Elon owns both of those. Great, have fun parsing that out. But even that, the decisions I make when driving are different than the decisions I make on Instagram, because when I'm driving, I don't take off my shirt and show my six-pack, which I don't have, right? So each one of these things are siloed. The point of this mental gymnastics, and word vomit, if you may, is that none of these real-time data sources solve the infinite amount of data AI needs. In fact, each one of these data sources each have their own AI. Meta has Llama, Microsoft, in its deal with OpenAI, has ChatGPT, Google has Gemini, Amazon has Anthropic. So what you then see is each one of these AIs, by default, is going to be different than the others because the data that they're taking in is different. Therefore, can any one of those AIs truly be universal? And the answer is no, because it's only learning the prism that it's siloed in. So how are they getting the synthetic data? Well, the synthetic data is what they see in real time on their engines, on their websites, on their social media stuff, but also the first level of assumptions they can make. So you know the saying, you are who you're friends with? That's synthetic data. There's nothing more to it. If all your friends like apples and you've been friends with them for 20 years and you're going on trips with them in the fall to apple fields, I can deduce that you like apples. In that deduction of you like apples, now I'm able to expand the parameters of different buckets that you may fit into and juxtapose and contrast and everything and Venn diagram. Well, I know this about you, which means I can maybe deduce this. But if I know this about you and that you like apples, I can maybe deduce this and, so that's the first level of synthetic data, which is actually, structurally I have an issue with it because I don't think it's honest. But real world, I think perfect is the enemy of the good. Now, the argument is, well, if you're going to have AI rule everyone's life, it should be perfect and not just good. And we could have that argument because I believe in that, right? That's the whole point of what we're doing. But to a lot of people, that's like a 50-50 argument. So we're not going to get into it. But that's level 1. What about level 2, 3, 4, and 5? What about when you've exhausted all the synthetic data of level 1, which is like you are who you're friends with? Because are you who your friends' friends are? If your wife's family is criminals and you married her knowing they're criminals, does that make you a criminal? If your father was a rapist, does that make you a rapist? If your great-grandfather was, a racist that owned plantations, does that make you inherently racist? If your sister marries a man 40 years her senior, does that mean your dad was bad to you? I don't know. I would say a lot of those are like, Ant, if you even think about finishing that sentence, I'm going to punch you in the face, right? Like, you can't make those inferences based on that data. But what do you think the 5th level, 6th level, and 7th level of synthetic data is going to look like? Well, if you are who you're friends with is level 1, and again, Ant, well, we're accepting that to be true. You don't know that to be true. I know enough to know that that's true, right? And even if I'm being a little bit fast and loose with the definition, give me a derivative of 2 that I'm wrong. Okay, he's wrong. You are who your best friends are. Okay, that would be a 2 derivative in. All right, say you are who your bestest best friends are. And we could agree to that. That would be the first level of synthetic data. Okay, now take that out 5, 6 times. You're going to get to the same place I'm at. If AI needs infinite data, and if it needs infinite money, then the levels you're going to go are also going to be infinite. So to get back to the point of this whole, we solve that not in the individual components, but in the symphony of the components, the assembly line of how it works. Because each one of the components is specifically designed to interact with the next one, all on the backdrop of behavioral science in a scalable fashion that allows humans to participate voluntarily in the most honest way because they have no fear, have no safety glitch, have nothing that's going to harm them. In fact, the higher the level of participation equals the higher level of good outcome, whether that be the payment received as the universal basic income that's incorporated, or the global data set that everyone is creating on a one-on-one level, but in a massive way, which effectively becomes everyone taking control of the future that's about to be before them. And even when I say that, that sounds like, well, Ant, I really have no idea what you just said. The core of the patent is user plus AI companion plus closed-end marketplace equals the facilitation of commerce. What it does is it creates an AI marketplace, the foundational structure of it. So Anthony has an AI companion, his name is Ted. Anthony and Ted know everything about each other. I speak to Ted all the time. He knows, everything about me. Now, for that companion, for that relationship to be funded, there has to be a marketplace component to it, because now that marketplace has to make sense in the sense that it's benefits the user, i.e. Anthony in this scenario, to participate in it, right? So I'm not going to participate in something that I like if it's funded by something I don't like, right? Like, oh, I love this relationship with Ted, but I have to go outside and scream at my neighbor twice a day just to continually fuel Ted. Well, no, I don't like doing that. And I didn't have this Ted thing before, so I don't, kick rocks, come up with something better. So the marketplace has to make sense. Well, if Ted knows everything about you, well, then essentially he is able to at least predict when you have a need, a necessity, a service, something that you may like. Well, yeah, duh. Well, rather than Ted just blurting out anything that he thinks, why doesn't he have a grading system, like an algorithm that if he gets to a 95% certainty that you would like it, he'll recommend it to you, okay? Now, Ted is always constantly learning, so that 95% is constantly going to become closer and closer to perfect. Even if it never gets there, it will always, every day it'll be closer to perfect than the day before. Okay, great. So Ted recommends something to me. Hey, Aunt, you want Chinese food? No, I really don't. Oh, that's so weird. I thought you would have wanted it. Why don't you want Chinese food? Oh, because I just had pasta yesterday and I had spaghetti. And when I get Chinese food, I always get lo mein. And it's the summertime and I'm trying to cut down on the carbs. So I don't want to have a duplication of the same noodle, just in different sauces. Oh, I never thought of that. Now Ted knows, that I'm thoughtful, that summertime matters to me, having a good shape matters to me, dietary matters to me, down to the metric of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are able to affect my decision, and yada, yada, yada. Now take all of that, re-multiply all you know of Anthony into the added persona of meticulous, dietary, down to the molecule, whether it's carbohydrate or protein, that is seasonally guided. And it is a Friday, so maybe he's going to the beach tomorrow and he doesn't want a carb load on a Friday. Like all these things now take into account when Ted makes such a recommendation again. So take that and multiply it to infinity, and you get the path of how those recommendations will get very, very close to you saying yes all the time. And next part is when Ted is able to backdate on a rolling 60-day period in any particular micro niche. So this micro niche might be dinner time Friday, right? Like dinner time Friday. When Ted has proven that over the course of the last 60 days, his recommendations have been accepted by you 95% or higher over that period of time, Ted is able to now make autonomous decisions of said micro niche with your permission. Hey, Aunt, I believe I can solve this for you without even asking. Do I have your permission to make this decision myself? Yeah, sure, go ahead. Meaning now Ted's going to solve that for me on every Friday dinner going forward. And if he makes the wrong decision, I'm going to say, Ted, that was the wrong decision. Don't worry, I'll pay for it. And now I have to be 96% sure in this micro niche to ever do it again. So there's always a self-learning function. Okay, Aunt, where are you going with this? Well, I think by description, you would at least come close to concluding, well, wow, if all of that works, Ted seems like he's in a really good position to know exactly what you want, and he has a self-learning mechanism that if he gets it wrong, he's always going to get better at or deducing what you want. Great. Well, who is that really great for? Well, me, I would like to be served. The point being, the other people that would really like that are the businesses, because businesses no longer need to market. They no longer need to do advanced algorithms, this, that, and the third. If they had a mechanism that was able to identify their perfect customer at the perfect time, at the perfect opportunity, what does that morph a company into? It morphs them into exponentially more profitable. It makes them far leaner because now they don't even need a marketing department, but also it allows them to concentrate just on the product or service, because the only thing they need to do is make it really good. Because if it starts getting recommended and people are like, Ted, you got me this Chinese food the other day, but it was terrible, like really, really bad. It was so salty that I put on like 10 pounds, my face was swollen, never again. And enough of those, and Ted's like, I'm never ordering from that place again, right? Because the behavior gets sent up into like the galactic tapestry blockchain or whatever, global data set that's behavior. Now that behavior is never tied to an individual or to identity. Nobody needs to know who said what. They just need to know, well, male 34, blah, 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 said, not to get too much into it. But in that global data set is King's Dynasty, #1 Chinese food. Because every Chinese place, I swear, and I love it, right? Like I order from Chinese places, always say #1. Every Chinese place you ever went to is #1 in the world, #1 Chinese food. And it's one of those lies that we all just accept as like pageantry, like, I don't know. But anyway, so King's Dynasty Chinese food #1. And the TED blockchain is like, everyone that orders King's Dynasty #1 says it's like really salty. Therefore, as that comes down, where TED pulls from the source material to make the deductions, because he wants to know you, but then juxtapose it to a very, very strong data set that allows it a baseline. Everyone that orders this is disappointed. I'm Ted. I want my user not to be disappointed. Therefore, I'm not going to recommend that place. Therefore, that Chinese place is no longer going to be in business if nobody in the platform ever gets service from them again, right? So each individual business now is scaling to be the best they could ever be, which paradoxically is what everyone ever wanted. Hey, listen, businesses and consumers, we're in partnership. You make stuff, we buy stuff. So can you just make the best thing and like allow us that our money's not going to nothing? This system actually enforces that. Okay, great. So what effectively have we done? And I think I could cut it off there, right? What effectively have we done? We found a scalable format where AI gets infinite money, because the businesses that are on the closed end marketplace, it's closed, you could only get in somehow, right? Because it's closed, it's a subscription agreement. The businesses that come in are paying a fee to be in the closed end marketplace that TED uses to make any recommendations or autonomous purchases to the users. Therefore, the scale of commerce, the economic scale of the globe equals the economic scale of data and of money. These are the two things AI needs to grow. It needs economic scaled infinite data and economic scaled infinite money. The only way that can happen is if you coalesce and unionize the entire human population as humanity and unionize the entire business community as closed-end marketplace. Effectively, what you're doing is taking that partnership of human and business and unionizing both and then creating an intermediary that acts as a fair mediator. That's all we did. But the way to do that is you have to, and that's the difficult part, right? You have to have everyone agree to it. It benefits everyone. Businesses have to be happy. Like, how do you do that? And that is where our patent does. But again, the beauty of how that's done is not in each individual component, right? Like, I love paella. Do you know how many ingredients are in paella? Each one of those ingredients I don't love by themselves. In fact, to make a different analogy, I love pizza. I love pasta. I love ketchup. I do not love biting tomatoes, right? Or tomatoes to our more fancy people out there. The components that are in the TED patent, we're essentially like, Anthony, you're trying to patent tomato, you're trying to patent salt, and you're trying to patent sugar. That's already been done. Oh, you want to patent ketchup? Well, dummy, just connect them and do that. And that's essentially what the denial notice was. Because, and I'm going to read something to you that I'm scanning through, but I did my own research on it before I made this call or got on this call. What you have is essentially an opportunity to respond to an office action. The contact info for the examiner is an invitation to do an examiner interview, which is a very good sign. It means they believe the application can be made allowable with the right adjustments. The timeline is 1 to 3 months from where we are right now. And then lastly, the thing that is really, really quite good, having direct contact is huge. Many applicants never use this and drag through multiple rejections unnecessarily. If this is a non-final office action, which it is, and you respond in line, which we are, with the interview allowance, which we will, the next review is very realistic. And any USPTO delays actually add days to your patent term. So let me just kind of sum that up. When the USPTO makes a denial notice, it's not like a templated, like we just send one denial. If you're trying to patent the wheel, they send you a denial that says, hey, to quote my son, poopy head garbage pail. But he's not talking about me when he says that, and I'm not allowed to say who he's talking about. The denial would say, hey, poopy head garbage pail, the wheel has already been patented, like kick rocks. What they sent us was, hey, we're denying these claims because we need more information. So for us to have gotten the exact contact, this is his name, this is his phone number, please call me if you want, right? Whatever it says, but to me, it says, please call me. What I then did that day, and I did send this out to everyone, was a complete analysis of our patent, a complete analysis of what we're trying to create, like what I just explained to you, and a complete analysis of what their reasons for the denial was. And they even cited some cases and patents. So I put that all together and produced a revision that we then sent out to all of y'all, but also sent to our patent attorneys. That revision I sent to the patent attorneys, plus the video that's on, oh, it is on rhinostreet.com in the footer. The 13-minute video of like what the patent actually is, right? Where we cut it down, and effectively, if you can watch these 13 minutes, you'll know what it is. Sent that to the patent attorneys. That was 2 weeks ago. I caught up with them last week and said, hey guys, do you need me at all? Because no one's calling me. They go, no, Ant, sorry. You sent us everything we needed. If we need anything additional, we'll reach out to you, but we're already working on it. Like it's already been scheduled, calendared is the word they used. So what they're doing is they're working on the revision, but I imagine that they would probably call the inspector first and say, hey, listen, we got this. This is what we meant. Let's chat a little bit. If we make these amendments, is there any reason you see for further rejection, right? So they're going to ask that question after they give their blah, blah, blah. The inspector will say, yeah, well, the wheel already exists, or oh, that's what, I see. Okay, yeah, no one's ever been crazy enough to do that. Okay, great. So they're working on that. And I've told them in a very, very expedited fashion. The presumption then being, and I guess this would be best case scenario, but I think it's reasonable to deduce the following because the components to this deduction are all reasonably in hand. If you speak to the inspector and the inspector says, yes, if you make those changes, there's no need for rejection. And the patent attorneys make just those changes and don't go like crazy and say, well, we also want to invent the wheel with it. So if you make these changes, we won't make any rejection. We then make those changes and we send it to the person that says they won't make a rejection. If that is like, please Lord, right? Then the timeline for that next response is a couple of weeks to 3 months. Which I think puts us squarely. So I think the submission, if the resubmission is August 25th, a couple of weeks to 3 months puts us at September, October, November at the latest. Now, when we did our money raise, we did it for the next 3 to 6 months, which capped out at December. So there is nothing that happened that actually is bad, right? And no one's even giving me flack about it. But I say it out loud because the word denial is an ugly word. Oh, they got denied on their patent. No, what actually happened was we've been given the gift of the last 2 years. Remember, it gets lost in the commentary that we participate together, that everything that I'm saying is relevant. Because if it wasn't relevant, you'd be able to say, well, Anthony, everything you're saying doesn't even sound like it makes sense. Because when you thought of it 2 years ago, yeah, it made sense, but clearly that's not the way things are going. But because everything that I'm saying is so relevant to today, we forget that everything that I'm saying, we wrote down on paper 2 years ago and acquired for the patent on it, predicting that 2 years later, today, it would all be relevant. The last 2 years, we did learn some stuff. It's not like we predicted every single minute thing. And take this, right? So the patent office says, no, we're not dismissing this. This could be something. You just got to give us a little bit more detail what you're trying to do here. Okay, that's what they've given us. Here's my number. Here's my name. It's not dismissed like final. Like we're just saying you need to tell us a little bit more about what this is because we don't really understand it. If you're doing each individual component, well, yeah, it's going to be. So tell us more. But what they're not giving us that we have already given ourselves is that for the last 2 years, we've been watching everything that's happening. So is there something that happened in the last 2 years that I did not predict? Maybe. Is there something in the last 2 years that if God came down and said, Ant, listen, I'm going to allow you to refile your patents with all of the knowledge of the last 2 years, but backdate it to November 2023. I'm going to do this one time for you. Like, are you happy? I'd be like, oh my God. Yeah, God, oh my God. Thank you so much. I could not be happier to know that I'm able to go back in time 2 years with all of the knowledge I know now and refile a patent with every little new thing that I know today. Especially since the last 2 years, all I've done is eat, sleep, breathe, poop, fart, vomit, eat, drink, AI. That's it. That's what happened. That's it. That's what happened. Oh. And when you refile it, I'm going to give you the details and the contact of the exact person that's going to be in charge of making this decision. Does the word denial even come close to explaining that? No, it's like the craziest thing. So we need to come up with a new word for this because I'm happier than I've ever been with what's going on because our timeline doesn't change. In fact, we were given the back-end timeline to December. Our timeline effectively is now looking for a high probable outcome by November now. So that is what's going on with the patent attorney.